If you're thinking about buying a pickup truck in 2026, this might be the video that saves you thousands of dollars. Because some of these trucks, they look tough, they sound impressive, but behind all that, they're unreliable, overpriced, and in some cases, complete disasters. And somehow, people keep buying them. Today, we're breaking down the worst pickup trucks you can buy right now, from bad choices to trucks that will absolutely wreck your wallet. Stick around to the end because the last ones on this list get way worse than you think. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment with the truck you think deserves to be here.
Number 8. Ford F-150 PowerBoost Hybrid. All right, kicking things off with a truck that sounds like a genius idea on paper, but in real life? Yeah, not so much. The Ford F-150 PowerBoost Hybrid was supposed to be the ultimate combo. Massive torque, better MPG, and that future-ready tech. And to be fair, on a good day, it actually delivers. The power is instant, the towing capacity is solid, and the ProPower onboard system, which lets you run power tools off the truck, is a legitimate game changer for job sites. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, here is where the nightmare begins. The core issue is that Ford took a reliable work truck and stuffed it with an incredibly high level of complexity. You've got a twin-turbo engine, an electric motor, a high-voltage battery pack, and a complex 10-speed modular hybrid transmission. That is a lot of potential points of failure. By 2026, many of these units are hitting the used market or aging out of their factory warranties, and the repair bills are terrifying. We're talking about specialized hybrid components that can cost $5,000 to $10,000 to replace. Owners are already reporting ghost electrical glitches, sudden loss of power, and software bugs that leave even master technicians baffled. It's the classic modern truck trap. It's too smart for its own good. Then there's the price. Even in 2026, you're looking at $40,000 to $55,000 for a decent trim. That's a massive investment for a truck that might save you a few bucks at the gas pump, only to eat those savings alive the moment a warning light pops up on the dash. If you're buying a truck for long-term reliability, adding this much complexity is like putting a high-end gaming PC inside a bulldozer. It's cool until the software crashes or a sensor fails. The PowerBoost is the kind of truck that makes you feel like a genius for the first month and then has you questioning your life choices every time it goes into limp mode. Not the absolute worst on this list, but definitely a gamble you don't want to take.
Number 7. Chevrolet Silverado 1500. Now, this one might surprise a lot of people because the Chevrolet Silverado 1500 looks like the ultimate safe, all-American choice. Big presence, strong engine options, and solid towing numbers. On paper, it checks every single box. But once you actually have to live with it, that is where the dream starts to fall apart. The first major strike is the transmission. A massive number of owners have complained about rough shifting, hesitation, and a jerky clunk that feels like the truck is being rear-ended when it downshifts. It's not just annoying, it's a sign of a gearbox that's struggling to stay alive. But the real deal breaker is under the hood. The 5.3-liter and 6.2-liter V8 engines have been notorious for lifter failure. Imagine driving down the highway and your engine starts ticking and misfiring because a poorly designed fuel management system decided to eat itself. That's a multi-$1,000 repair that has turned many Chevy loyalists into former owners. Then you've got the classic modern GM headache: electrical glitches, infotainment screens that go black, backup cameras that cut out right when you're hitching a trailer, and random service 4WD lights that appear and disappear like ghosts. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. And don't even get me started on the interior. If you're looking at a 2019 to 2021 model, you're stepping into a sea of cheap, scratchy plastics and an outdated design that feels like it's from 2010. It's like GM spent the entire budget on the exterior and forgot that people actually have to sit inside the truck. In 2026 used market, you're still going to pay between $35,000 and $45,000 for one of these. At that price, you should be getting refinement and reliability, not a headache machine that leaves you wondering if today's the day the engine starts ticking. Number 6. Jeep Gladiator. Let me paint you a picture. You see a Jeep Gladiator parked on the street. Big tires, aggressive stance, doors off, roof missing. It looks like it just came back from conquering a mountain. You think to yourself, yeah, that's the one. And that's exactly how this truck gets you. The Gladiator is 100% about the image. It sells you a lifestyle, adventure, freedom, and pure off-road dominance. For the first few days, you're all in. You feel like you bought the coolest thing on the road. Then reality kicks in. You take it on a commute. You try to park it at the grocery store. You hit the highway for a road trip. And suddenly that cool factor starts to fade. The steering is vague and loose. You're constantly sawing at the wheel just to keep it in a straight line at 70 miles an hour. The ride is bouncy. The wind noise is deafening thanks to that boxy shape. And let's be honest, the 3.6-liter Pentastar V6 feels seriously underpowered when you're trying to pass someone while carrying a full load. It's not broken, it's just a Jeep thing. And that's the problem. Most people don't buy a truck to go rock crawling every single weekend. They buy it to use every day. But the Gladiator? It never lets you forget it was built for a trail, not the tarmac. Now look at the price tag. Even in 2026, you're looking at $35,000 to $50,000 plus on the used market. That is a lot of money for a truck that has less towing stability and a smaller payload than almost every other mid-size competitor. There's a reason why you see so many Gladiators back on the market with low mileage. People buy into the hype, realize they can't live with the compromise, and list them on Facebook Marketplace with the classic caption, "Barely used, never off-roaded." Yeah, that tells you everything you need to know. It looks like a dream, but for 90% of buyers, it drives like a regret. And that mismatch between expectation and reality is exactly why it sits at number 6.
Number 5. The Ram 2500 and 3500 HD. All right. This one's a different kind of problem. The Ram 2500 and 3500 are not bad trucks in the traditional sense, if you actually need what they're built for. And that is a massive if. These are heavy-duty monsters. We're talking about massive towing capacity, huge Cummins diesel engines, and the kind of capability that 90% of people will never actually use. But here's the reality. People are buying these trucks just to use them as daily drivers, and that's where things go sideways. First problem, the size. These things are gargantuan. Trying to park one at a grocery store is a nightmare. Navigating tight city streets? Forget it. Even a simple drive-through feels like a survival challenge. You're constantly aware that you're driving something way bigger than necessary for a Starbucks run. Second, the ride quality. When they aren't loaded down with a 15,000-pound trailer, these trucks ride stiff. I mean brutally stiff. They are engineered to carry weight, so when the bed is empty, the suspension feels like it's fighting you. It's bouncy, it's jarring, and it's definitely not comfortable for a long commute. Then comes the maintenance and reliability. If you go for the diesel version, you get incredible power, but you also get the Cummins tax. We're talking $200 oil changes, complex emission systems that love to throw codes, and the dreaded DEF system headaches. Plus, many of these years are still dealing with the infamous death wobble, a violent shaking of the steering wheel at highway speeds that will absolutely terrify you. Now, let's talk money. Even in the 2026 used market, these trucks hold their value way too well, sitting anywhere from $45,000 to over $70,000. That is serious money for a vehicle that is completely overkill for your lifestyle. The core issue isn't that the Ram HD is a bad machine, it's just the wrong truck for most people. It's like buying a semi-truck to go grocery shopping. Sure, you can do it, but you're paying more, suffering through a rougher ride, and paying triple in maintenance just for the heavy-duty badge. Unless you're hauling a literal house every weekend, this truck is a massive, expensive compromise. And that's why it lands right in the middle of our list.
Number 4. Rivian R1T. All right, now we're getting into risky territory. The Rivian R1T is one of those trucks that makes you say, wow, the first time you see it. Fully electric,
0 to 60 in 3 seconds, a futuristic interior, and more clever storage bins than his Swedish furniture store. This thing feels like it came straight out of 2030. And that's exactly the problem. Because buying a Rivian right now feels less like buying a truck and more like beta testing a very expensive experiment. Let's start with the price. Even in the 2026 used market, you're still looking at $60,000 to $80,000 plus. That's not just luxury truck money. That's it better be perfect money. But for that kind of cash, you want a support network. And that's where Rivian struggles. Rivian is still a young company, and that means service centers are few and far between. If you have a mechanical issue or even a minor fender bender, you aren't taking it to the local mechanic. You're on Rivian's timeline. We're talking about weeks, sometimes months, waiting for parts or a service appointment. Then there's the tech. It's impressive until it isn't. Owners have reported vampire battery drain, software loops that lock you out of the truck, and infotainment screens that decide to reboot while you're driving. When your $70,000 workhorse starts acting like a laggy tablet, the novelty wears off fast. And let's talk about truck stuff. The range is great on paper, but the moment you hitch a trailer, that range gets cut in half or worse. If you live in a cold climate or do a lot of long-distance hauling, you're suddenly planning your entire life around charging stations that might not even be working when you get there. The R1T isn't a bad machine, it's just a high-risk gamble. You're betting on a company that is still finding its footing and tech that is evolving faster than the resale value can keep up. It's cool, it's fast, and it's definitely a conversation starter. But in 2026, it's still an early adopter headache that most people should avoid. That's why it lands at number 4. Number 3, Tesla Cybertruck. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the Tesla Cybertruck. Whether you love it or hate it, you cannot ignore it. This thing looks like it drove straight out of a low-budget 90s sci-fi movie and somehow, against all odds, made it into production. The hype was massive, the pre-orders were in the millions, and the expectations were literally out of this world. But now that it's been on the road for a while, reality has officially settled in. First off, the design. This isn't just about it looking like a giant doorstop. That sharp stainless steel body is a nightmare for practical ownership. The visibility is famously terrible, the frunk isn't as useful as the competition, and because of those flat panels, every fingerprint and smudge shows up like a crime scene. Then there's the build quality, or lack thereof. For a truck that costs more than some houses, people expected precision. Instead, we've seen consistent issues with panel gaps you could fit a finger through, trim pieces that fly off on the highway, and an exoskeleton that isn't nearly as indestructible as the marketing claimed. And let's talk about truck stuff in 2026. Like the Rivian, it's fully electric, but with an added layer of frustration. Towing a heavy trailer doesn't just reduce the range, it absolutely nukes it. If you're trying to haul a boat or a camper, you'll be spending more time at superchargers than you will be on the actual road. Now let's talk about the price tag. In 2026, whether you're buying new or used, you're looking at $80,000 to over $100,000 for the high-end versions. That is a staggering amount of money for a vehicle that still feels like a beta product. The Cybertruck isn't just a vehicle, it's a statement. It's a rolling piece of tech for people who want to be noticed. But as an actual functional truck, it's a series of compromises wrapped in cold-rolled steel. Most people don't need a rolling sci-fi project, they need something that works every single time. The Cybertruck is undeniably cool to look at, but as a long-term investment, it's a high-maintenance headache. And that's exactly why it lands at number 3.
Number 2, Nissan Titan. Now this one feels like a truck that the market has already moved on from. The Nissan Titan, especially the models leading up to its recent discontinuation, is that one option you constantly see popping up online with a great deal attached to it. And there is a very specific reason for that. Nobody is rushing to buy it, and the manufacturer itself has finally pulled the plug.
On paper, it doesn't look like a disaster. You get a naturally aspirated V8, decent towing capacity, and a price tag that's usually thousands lower than a Ford, Chevy, or Ram. Sounds like a bargain, right? Yeah, until you realize why it's so cheap. The first problem is that the Titan is outdated in almost every way. While every other brand was busy upgrading interiors, adding massive screens, and refining drivetrains, the Titan just sat there. Stepping inside a Titan feels like a time capsule from 2017. The infotainment is basic, the layout is old school, and the overall vibe is completely behind the times. In this price range, being behind isn't just a preference, it's a financial liability. Then there's the fuel economy. That 5.6-liter V8 is a dinosaur. It drinks gas like it's free. And with no hybrid options or turbocharged efficiency to balance things out, you're just watching your bank account drain every time you merge onto the highway. But the real kicker in 2026, resale value. Because Nissan has officially killed off the Titan, the depreciation has gone from a steady slide to a total freefall. You might save $5,000 today, but you'll lose $10,000 the moment you try to trade it in. Plus, as the years go by, finding specific body parts and specialized components is only going to get harder and more expensive. Reliability isn't the worst on this list, but it's not legendary enough to justify the lack of innovation. When a truck is outdated, thirsty, and losing its relevance, there is no real reason to choose it over the competition. It's the kind of truck you buy because it's the only thing left on the lot, not because you actually want it. It's a ghost in the making, and that's exactly why it lands at number 2.
Number 1, the Toyota Tacoma, the new era. Yeah, this one is going to shock a lot of people. The Toyota Tacoma has always been the safe choice. It's the truck with the bulletproof reputation, the insane resale value, and that legendary "this thing will last 300,000 miles" image. But the all-new generation? It is a completely different story. And that is exactly why it takes the number 1 spot on our list. Let's talk about the massive shift. Toyota ditched the old simple V6 and went all in on a turbocharged 4-cylinder with an optional hybrid setup. On paper, it's more efficient and more powerful. In reality, it has been a rocky start. By 2026, we've seen the growing pains. We're talking about massive recalls regarding transmission failures that left owners stranded with brand new trucks. The new 8-speed gearbox has been reported to have rough shifts and hesitation issues that just don't feel like the Toyota quality people are paying for. And then there's the price. A modern Tacoma can easily climb into the $50,000 to $65,000 range for the top trims. At that price, you aren't just buying a mid-sized truck, you're making a massive financial investment. But here's the real kicker. People are still buying these based on the reputation of the old Tacoma. They think they're getting that legendary, unkillable machine, but what they're actually getting is a highly complex, first-generation turbocharged engine that is still proving its long-term durability. Owners are reporting turbos failing prematurely, infotainment glitches that reset the whole dash, and a driving experience that feels stressed compared to the lazy, reliable power of the old V6. The reason the new Tacoma hits number 1 isn't because it's the worst-built truck on the planet. It's because it's the most misleading buy in 2026. You are paying a reliability premium for a truck that is currently struggling with fundamental mechanical issues. Buying this truck right now means you are paying to be Toyota's test driver. It still looks tough, and it still has the name, but underneath, the legend is fading. And that makes it the most dangerous purchase you could make this year.